Thanks to Walked In Entertainment, I was recently sent a screener for a new indie film titled The Stolen Valley, and I want to talk about it with you guys, so let's get into it. This movie, I believe, is the directorial debut of Jesse Edwards, who premiered this film at a couple of film festivals to some acclaim. It's basically a Western. It's about the struggles that Native Americans have gone through in terms of losing their land and what it takes to get that back. But amongst all that, it's also a road trip movie between two characters who are kind of pulled together for pretty similar reasons and find out that they're more closely linked than what they realize. So on paper, this sounds like a pretty decent and promising movie with some really interesting themes to discuss. And if this is delivered in the right way, with the right direction, good performances, you can have a really great underrated movie on your hands. However, for most of this film's runtime, I just didn't quite feel that. There is a very wooden nature to The Stolen Valley that just makes the whole thing feel very hollow and empty. It feels really harsh to say it, but passionless in some regards, because you just don't feel the urgency in this film. Yes, it does a lot of the right things technically, and the performances are okay enough. They're not Oscar caliber, but they're decent enough. There's some decent enough cinematography in here. There is a decent enough narrative, but there's no gusto behind it. There's no real spark to this thing to really make it become such an interesting film that is highly engaging throughout its hour and a half runtime. Because of that, it makes the whole thing feel very superficial and very generic, unfortunately. Even if there are some compelling moments in this film, and definitely some bright spots to be had for sure. Speaking of the bright spots in this movie, I think Micah Fitzgerald plays an excellent antagonist in this film. He just naturally fits into this world and the style of filmmaking that Jesse Edwards has employed into this film. And I think he is a very nice addition in this cast. I think he's the strongest performer in this cast. And the role just brings a lot of interest into the movie. I think a lot of the developments that happen around this character, as well as our two central protagonists, are the most interesting moments in the film. I do think as well that the third act is the strongest aspect of this film. The first 2/3 of this movie, you're just really struggling to connect with these characters in any way, and that problem does persist the whole way through the movie, but at least there are more interesting developments in the third act that give you something to be interested in. It tries for some things, and while it doesn't always pay off, some of the twists do feel a little bit half-hearted and don't feel as earned as what they could be. They feel like, at times, slightly cheap for just shock value. Overall, they do bring some excitement to the film, so I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate that they went for something to make it interesting and have some urgency to this movie, because for a lot of it, I just didn't feel it. It just felt so safe in everything that it was trying to do, and because of that, it does feel awfully generic overall. Overall, The Stolen Valley is quite patchy. It does try for some things, but overall it just feels way too safe to really be all that interesting, I'm afraid. It does feel like a very typical directorial debut with all of the flaws and errors that you would expect from a first-time filmmaker. There is so much inexperience in this film, and I think that's why it lacks certain developments and things that would make this type of film special, because what he had as an idea does work on paper. A lot of the developments in this film can be really good and really excellent. And the performances, as I said, while they are a little wooden for the most part, apart from Micah Fitzgerald, they are decent enough to hold the film. They're not awful performances. But overall, I'm afraid I'm going to give The Stolen Valley a 2 out of 5. I just don't think it's that strong, and it's not one that I'm really going to be thinking about all that much over the years. It's a very forgettable movie, I'm afraid. And those are my thoughts towards The Stolen Valley. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.